My name is AJ Bull. I'm a medical student in Kenya and currently working with Medical Students Association of Kenya as a National Officer for Human Rights and Peace. I'm also blessed to have an experience as a refugee. I have been a refugee in Kakuma refugee camp for the last 18 years. Now, refugees go through an experience that is quite devastating. Refugees experience violations of human rights and freedoms, and they experience deprivation of basic human needs. Personally, I know exactly what it feels like to go for a day or two without food, water, or both. Personally, I know exactly what it feels like to walk with no shoes on. I know exactly what it feels like to live in temporary shelters. I know exactly what it feels like to have an experience with PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder. I know exactly what it feels like to have no entitlement to freedom of movement. I know exactly what it feels like to have no medical insurance. I know exactly what it feels like to live with no family because your family has been displaced and separated by war. Refugee crisis is the greatest and most devastating of all the human crises. It's more devastating in contrast to the environmental crisis. And 21st century has portrayed an increase of approximately 70 million people displaced globally. Now, this 70 million is a great number, very great. It's greater than a third of world's population. It's greater than half of the population of Japan. 70 million is approximately the population of everyone in UK. And a third of all these refugees come from simply five countries: South Sudan, Afghanistan, Syria, Somali, and Myanmar. Now, we can say that this population or this population of refugees come from small countries and we have no needs to be moved, or maybe we have nothing to do with them. But one thing that I can tell you is a refugee crisis is a humanitarian crisis. These are human beings and their needs are our needs. Refugees are people, men, women, and children who have potentials and they are only sustained by hopes for the future, hopes for a better education, hopes for resettlement. If we do not work together as human beings, then nobody is going to help the refugees. We need to know that their rights are human rights because refugees are human beings. Now, personally, I can propose four basic solutions to the problems that refugees face. First of it all being work permits. It's really important if we get to incorporate work permits and entitle them to refugees. Refugees have experienced with education and some of them have worked and studied, but they cannot be able to sustain their families because they are not granted work permits. Second solution that I can propose is resettlement. Now, resettlement strategies should be convenient and applicable to all refugees, irrespective of where the refugee camp is situated. Another thing that I can propose is social protection fundings. I know that is really lacking, but if we get to fund social protection for refugees, because refugees have rights, refugees have needs, and if these needs and rights are not protected, then they are deprived of them. And the last one that I know, refugees, a greater number of the refugee percentage is made up of young people. Now, these young people are people with strength and people with potentials. And if we can get to tap into these potentials, then these young people can be employed and can be independent and be able to work together for the sustainment of their societies and promotion of peace. This is what we can work on to be able to help in the refugee crisis. Peace.